Hello and welcome to the Interview Magazine TV. Here is the TV version of your popular throwaway publication, the Interview Magazine. And of course, this is the very first edition of the series, what promises to be a series. And we are taking up very quickly a very important subject in the polity. And what a panel to have with me to do justice to this very rigid controversy, which is on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2018 and all the controversy around it. I have joining me for this, kind of roundtable discussion here, Mr. Ishiekwene. He is the Managing Director, Editor-in-Chief of the Interview Magazine. Before now, Azu was former Executive Director of Punch Newspapers, also a former Group Managing Director of Leadership Group based here in Abuja, Nigeria. Azu is also the author of a book titled The Trial of Nuhu Rebado. It's a riveting story of Nigeria's anti-corruption war. Azu, good to see you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aruleba.
It's also an opportunity to have with us here today a face you probably have been seeing around. Ezenwa Nwagwu is chairman, partners for electoral reform, and also the convener Say No campaign. After stints at the National Democratic Institute, NDI, and the European Union, Ezenwa Nwagwu also sits on the board of several non-profit organizations, NGOs. Good to see you, Ezenwa.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
All right, it's a non-ending controversy. The president, of course, has left no one in doubt as to his desire to have an electoral act that will be foolproof. This is the fourth time he will be demonstrating this resolve on this particular bill. 3 times before now, he had declined to assent to the efforts of the National Assembly to have an electoral law that will govern the 2019 election. Let's look at the present situation. The president is right, the president is wrong. Where do you stand on this issue?
For me, it's not essential. It's not really a matter of whether the president is right or wrong. I think that it might be useful to examine the reasons why he refused to give assent. And then perhaps from that we may be able to come to a conclusion of whether his reason for refusing assent are valid or not. He gave a couple of reasons for refusing assent last week. Among them, of course, he mentioned the drafting. He mentioned major drafting errors. He also mentioned scheduling errors. He said there were significant scheduling errors, not just scheduling errors. He also said that signing it will be in contempt or in violation of the 2001 ECOWAS Protocol on Good Governance. There were a number of reasons. And of course, there is also a reason not stated, but obvious if you take a closer look at it, about an aspect of the electoral bill that criminalizes non-transmission of election results. Electronically. These are some of the reasons why he gave for not assenting to the bill. I don't think they're unreasonable. Of course, the other parties who insist that he should assent to it have their reasons. But as far as I'm concerned, these reasons that he gave, if you look at I have taken a look at the amendments, and the 9 reasons given by the National Assembly why those amendments are valid and inevitable. I've looked at those things. I've also heard the president's side of the story. I think there is great merit in the points that he raised. And on one more note on that, he did not also say he will not. He said, look, he would sign provided the commencement date is after the coming elections. I think that's reasonable. In any case, there is an extant law, the Electoral Act 2015, which was passed into law by the PDP government, on the basis of which the 2015 elections were conducted. So I don't think that it's a do or die affair.
So at all material times, we have a legal regime to govern the electoral process.
That's my view.
And indeed, it's been argued that this electoral process started long ago.
Exactly.
And it's a process.
Yes.
And in that process, you have timelines. And several of the timelines have actually been met, commenced, and finished under the extant law.
Correct.
And if you kick in a new law now, if there's litigation, which of the two legal regimes would you be cited?
That's also another point that he made.
That's
although I don't agree. I don't think it's the business of the executive to worry about interpretation of laws. If you believe in the validity and utility of a particular law, you enact it or sign it, and then leave the judiciary to interpret. But the previous reasons I gave, in my view, are sufficient grounds for non-accent.
Ezenwa, the president has a fine legislator now. He seems to be doing well in an unusual field, which is the field of lawmaking. 3 times. On the 25th of June, when the first electoral amendment bill was passed to him, he declined assent. He gave reasons. The National Assembly members obviously believed him because they went back to look at those reasons. They brought up a new one, sent to him on the 3rd of September, he declined assent. He gave reasons. They looked at all those reasons and found merit in it. And then, of course, cut long story short, this is the 4th time the president is declining assent and is giving reasons. What does this make of the president? And what does it make of the legislators?
Well, there are, for me, very clear issues. The issues may not necessarily be in terms of, the trajectory of the amendments and the challenges, the bottlenecks that it has met. I am more worried about, first and foremost, the conspiracy of the political elite, generally, whether in the National Assembly or in the executive. You see, when you make amendments in an election year, you throw in a lot of heat and partisanship into the process. The merit of the conversation will be lost. What you will then be dealing with will be trenches. Who is in which trench? Who does this benefit? And I think that, for me, the president should ordinarily, he has a moral burden, being one who has obviously told the world that he has suffered electoral injustice. He needs to have spearheaded the drive to shore up electoral integrity. That, for me, is a basic. So, if you begin to have this conversation, it's clear that the national...
Have you suggested that the whole thing should have been an executive bill ab initio?
It should have been. And then, more importantly, the drive, the urgency, the immediacy, the intentionality that should drive that process should really have been spearheaded by the president. So, what do I mean? A National Assembly that is generally known to be lazy, not really interested in sunshine laws, that are more interested in legislating to their pockets. Those are issues that are already known to the average Nigerian. So the burden of shoring up, because why are you making amendments? What is the basis for the amendment? The key issue in some of those amendments has to do with perhaps the transmission of results electronically, the issue of the smart card reader. Those are the most critical of the issues around amendment. Okay, so what is he supposed to do? Well, if you do that, you want to give legal backing to the smart card reader. You've cited that severally. The Supreme Court, meddled into the whole PVC smart card reader issue, and people were no longer sure. Yeah. There is a Court of Appeal judgment that says it is, and then the Supreme Court came and said, look, the manual is what the law recognizes.
Manual accreditation.
Perhaps the controversy. No, so what I'm trying to do is to say, look, it doesn't mean that if you do not sign, if you do not give assent, that it vitiates the existing law. Mm-hmm. But every amendment is intended to shore up
the electoral process
and
make it more credible.
Make it more credible. So the timing that we are seeing, there's the law of first mention, which the president, because that's the first excuse he gave, it would cause confusion in the polity if he goes ahead and citing the ECOWAS protocol. There is also a provision in the ECOWAS
protocol articles.
It's not a loose-ended thing.
Yes, that says
consensus.
Yes, that makes
majority.
So the truth for me is that I do not think that politicians in the country truly, because our politics is a contest of ill-gotten advantage. Really, if you criminalize not using the smart card reader, it means that the resort to discretion, which can happen at the polling unit area, will be removed. So it becomes illegal for you to not use smart card reader.
Yes.
But perhaps we also need to bring in here INEC's reaction to all of this. The position of the politicians, particularly those who are opposed to the president's position, is this belief that unless we have this Electoral Act, 2019 elections are doomed. That position seems to be too much of politics. And it is in this context that I like us to look at INEC's reaction to all of this. INEC has insisted that smart card readers, as it has always been used, will be used.
Yes.
In actual fact, we're going to be having enhanced smart card readers that can also transmit electronically accreditation and results when results are collated. Hasn't that answered all of these issues thrown up by the key areas in the amendment bill, which is one, to have a more credible process starting and ending the election?
Thank you, Mr. Aruleba. Let me just backtrack a bit to. I think there's a consensus up to a point that politicians are playing the game that they play best during the election period. There's, I guess the greatest. I said in my column today that exaggeration is probably the worst strain of fever that, and it's all playing out as it were with the handling of the electoral bill. But remember that when all of this started in January 2017, I think it took the Senate, it took the House of Representatives 1 year to revert to. That was a whole lot of time lost. I'm saying that in initial response to the point that he made about the executive,
waiting to
which is right up to a point. I agree with him up to a point, but we should also remember how it all started. A whole lot of time.
They had from June 2015
nothing happened.
February
and then when they were even to introduce amendment, the amendments that they introduced, of course, that was when all the defections and all of that started. Where amendments self-serving amendments that they introduced. But be that it's also important to get the points at issues, clearly to discern them. The smart card reader, I do not understand the president's refusal to give accent as a smart card reader issue. I think that the sense I get is that we cannot go back on the smart card reader right now.
And
INEC has also said it is not going back on
and
the
I
smart
also
card
think
reader.
that maybe here we also need to query those who are saying that the court have invalidated.
Exactly.
There is no Supreme Court
exactly
that has invalidated the use
what
of
the Supreme Court ruling did is that it gave precedence to the manual register.
Yeah.
That does not mean that it invalidated the use of smart card readers. So it's important for people to, because I've heard a lot of people say, oh no, you see, the president does not want to sign because he thinks that that the smart card reader, not using the smart card reader will give him advantage in APC stronghold areas and all of that. But that is incorrect. I think the electronic transmission part, I have heard the argument, which makes sense, that before you deploy that, knowing the kind of challenges that we face, there ought to have been some limited scale tests. And we are not aware that INEC has tried to do that. Of course, is it something that we all desire as an improvement on what we have had from 2015? It's a desirable improvement.
And this has nothing to do with this.
It's a desirable improvement if we can get it, because it will, whatever the limitations of technology may be, that will also enhance transparency.
I think we don't need to help the arguments in terms of, first, the president does not conduct election. That's one basic thing. You have something you call Independent National Electoral Commission that has business of conducting election
and issue guidelines for every election.
So in terms of enhancing the smart card reader and its value, all the excuses that were providing, internet area, coverage, and all of those things, INEC has been transmitting results electronically in the last 3 years.
Yes,
but not instantly from the polling units.
No, just hold on.
Yes,
their back end. What has happened is that we've been making a call to put this out for the public, so that we put it out from the public, and they are saying, look, the law does not allow us to do that. Because if we do that, it will be illegal, because you cannot transmit results electronically by the current law that you have. So they tested it in the off-cycle elections that has happened. I do not want to think that it is the business. Let us deploy. Even in the most civilized environments, they don't go all electronic. It's still manual in some places, even in the US. And
my worry really is actually, if we legislate stricto sensu a particular format for INEC, whether again we are not encroaching on the Supreme Court decision or the interpretation given to the INEC's power to organize, supervise, and coordinate elections.
If this is the argument,
it's under that power,
yes,
that INEC has continued to give out guidelines for every election. And in 2015, INEC didn't tell anybody that, there wasn't any law which stricto sensu said that smart card readers would be used. It wasn't in the electoral.
Yes, but it was a regulation under INEC's guidelines.
Exactly.
INEC, under the Electoral Act, there was a regulation that said INEC could, under the Electoral Act, use devices that would enable it conduct.
Isn't that what INEC is doing for 2019?
And that was
hasn't that taken care of all these assumptions and fears that one party will have undue advantage?
No, on the 26th of March 2015, former President Goodluck Jonathan actually signed into law.
There is a law.
That is
2015
amendment. There's an amendment.
A lot of people don't do
exactly. Yeah. Which now it's no longer a matter. It's not no longer a regulatory issue. It's no longer basically just a regulatory issue. It's a law.
Yeah. The Electoral Act.
Exactly.
Which is the extant law.
Exactly. So but I think that essentially what we're looking at an election that is supposed to that will happen on the 16th of February. And he has raised the point about INEC's role in all of this, because INEC is the party that is charged with organizing these elections. And INEC has come out to say, look, we are going to use the enhanced smart card reader, but INEC
has additional features.
That has additional features.
Transmitting electronically.
Exactly. So I do not see why the fever is so intense. I don't see the point that we must, stricto sensu, that as a matter of fact, the man must sign it, he has to sign. I really do not,
That's not the... You see, there are back channels, there are backdoor ways of resolving issues. Separation of power does not mean antagonism. I know that there's bad blood, I know all of those things. But the truth of the matter is that we have made the timetable. We know when the elections will hold. Yes. And we knew a long time ago.
Yes.
All the different stakeholders were aware. So we can't honestly plead this time thing. It's either we accept that we didn't do what we should do, because there are other things that are fast tracked, things that are important to both the executive and they find a way to resolve those issues. I'm not saying that if you followed my conversation from the beginning, I'm saying, look, I know where the blame is, but I also think that somebody has much more responsibility to put us in that pedestal. If he didn't put us, doesn't mean that we will suffer any serious risk. But for argument purpose, it's important that the president realizes that he has responsibility to lead in every facet. And if that didn't happen, I'm not going to excuse him.
Well, perhaps one assurance that Nigerians need on this issue is that, contrary to the belief or the views being promoted in some circles, particularly from the national opposition side of the National Assembly, that unless the president signs this Electoral Act, which is why they are putting the idea of overriding his veto, that unless the president signs, 2019 is doomed. Nigerians
That's
probably need
That's
to
politics.
be
No,
assured
that's
that
part of the politics that we are talking about, and each side trying to play its own hand and play its advantage. But let me also mention here that
will 2019 be compromised in
I
any way?
I do not. I
Don't have
don't.
this electoral act.
See,
I do not.
Our elections.
There will be life after May 6th,
Elections.
after February 16th.
Otumba, I have continued to say that our elections are getting much more better.
Yeah.
That's the fact. The tragedy of it is that even those who worked for that reform and for the incremental progress themselves do not really come out to defend it. The media, 2007, you would go for elections, you are voting, and the result of where you are voting will be announced. The man who won the election himself said, look, this is incredibly flawed. That is embarrassed about it. So the media, civil society, partners, everybody started to, walk around this incremental progress.
Yes.
And we are seeing it. Why are you talking about vote buying now? Because you have shut the door. The door of compromise within the institution has been taken out. So people now have to take their money to the polling units, the same money they used to use to compromise, meaning that ballot papers will be brought from INEC officials to politicians' houses. It will be thumb-printed. Boxes will be snatched. The result of the place where the box was snatched will be announced. We are moving from there. There are people who know these things, but there is also the play of mischief. Take, for instance, somebody coming to say 70% of votes cast in how many percent of votes cast in 2015
people were not accredited.
and look at the literacy, the political illiteracy in that conversation. Voting is anonymous.
Of course.
So how do you arrive at this? How did you arrive at who? And then if, for instance, a winner has 120 votes, the runner-up has 100 votes. So it is only the 120 votes that were without PVC. This other person, educated people, you are surprised at it. So the play of mischief is there. There's a heavy load of mischief going on. But let me tell you, when the president refused to sign the 2018 amendment, people thought heaven will fall. Yeah. People thought Nigeria, the politicians were disappointed that first and foremost there was initial anger. But people went back to the issue you were raising. Yeah. They went to read those issues and said, look, who the heck? What nonsense?
But you see, just as an add-on to the point,
the legislative ability of our lawmakers. Here we are talking of 109 senators,
yes,
not just sitting on their own as senators,
yes,
but have the benefit of input from legislative aides. Each senator is entitled to 5 aides.
Yes.
They are expected to contribute to the work of a legislator in the art of lawmaking.
As if it's not their
that's 109 senators plus 5 aides each.
Yes.
So that's 5 times 109. In the House, we have 340 members who also are entitled to 5 legislative aides. Among them, lawyers who are supposed to be vast in legal drafting and all of that. Put all of that together. Laws like the president is pointing out, clerical errors, referencing errors,
I guess that a number of people have done. If you take your time to look at some of those drafting errors, and I'm not even going to talk about the typos, it's a shambles, just to put it mildly. In the third amendment that was done in August, before this last year, they actually omitted the smart card.
Yeah.
I mean, that's scandalous.
It's part of the
there were 40.
They omitted that was clearly omitted.
Something amendments came. They brought back.
So if the president actually wanted to play his hand at that time, he probably would just have signed it at that time. Okay, this is what you people want. But to come back to the issue of the role of the parties involved. Look, if the National Assembly, and we respect it as an independent organ of government, which has its own rules and forms, if it's really convinced that the president's non-assent will lead to doom, then they can summon 2/3 and override his veto.
And again, here comes in another Supreme Court decision again on this issue of how to override the presidential veto. It's not a straight jacket. It's not that you just call a session and say, okay, the president has done this. Oh yeah, those who are against and those who are. That's not. The Supreme Court already laid out the procedure to follow. That once a president declines assent to a bill and he gives reasons, you have to go through the process, or you have to start the process all over again. In which case, that bill has to go through first reading, second reading, third reading.
So
before you override.
So I think that where all of this leads to is that, like Eze said, I am absolutely convinced that we have made tremendous progress.
If that is the process, is it not better
since the time when Mike Tyson and the Budapest used to show up in the voter register? I think we really have made. Because there was a time when if you showed up at the polling unit where you would vote, all you needed to do was to present any form of identification, including the one you may have printed in your backyard, and that. But we have now gone to the point of full, and that as citizens and members of the civil society and the press, I think that the progress that we have made are points I think we should defend and insist on greater transparency. Now, it does not even mean that the more electronic or digitized system that you use, that it's going to be error-proof. No, we've seen what happened in Florida, which I refer to Florida as the world's capital of recounts. Yeah. They do electronic and then they go and recount manually. We have heard of interferences of all sorts and so forth. And so it doesn't mean that the system is foolproof. But whatever gains we have made, we have a duty as citizens to defend those minimum gains and insist on higher standards. But to, frame the argument that if the Electoral Bill is not assented to, that is going to be doomed in 2006, I absolutely do not believe that.
They need to reassure Nigerians the fact that if this bill doesn't say
when I listen to
we're not operating
when I listen to Aruleba or read your columns, I place it side by side when I meet people who frame opinions in the media. The absolute lack of understanding of elections and the electoral process is mind-boggling. And because you read it in Punch, you read it in The Nation, you read it in the... People go out and say, look, I read it, it is true. We need to first, and I say that election is not an all-comers affair. The processes that has to do with it is also not an all-comers. You are citing Supreme Court judgment on veto. Can we go out there and ask journalists of your own
who
come to terms with these issues? And they are the ones who shape and frame 2019. They create the apocalyptic picture of how Nigeria will collapse, how this election will be. But I know that it has commercial value. To create tension has commercial value, I'm aware. But not even for media alone, but even for the international community. In 2014, we were told that Nigeria will disintegrate
and collapse.
Many people ran away. People who registered in a particular place left where they registered and ran, so they could not vote. And not voting is a form of voting. If you don't vote, it is a form of voting. So we created that crisis. Here we are. 2015 is gone. Our country has remained with all the challenges that it is facing. We will still be talking about 2023 immediately after February. So the sense for me is that we need to deliberately, consciously, civil society, the media, the religious, institutions, traditional institutions, we must understand that it's about our country. And like he said, there will be life after 2019.
Right? Well, that's your last take, of course, which is that will it be also necessary for INEC to make its guidelines public on time, also when it's going to also fill up the vacuum in places where we won't have this electoral act, this acting on the extant law, will it be necessary for INEC to, and of course politicians will also change the narrative.
Yes,
let's prepare for how 2019 will be successful.
I absolutely believe that INEC has a major role to play, because it's INEC ought to provide leadership in this game. It does not mean that we're going to abandon the entire work for INEC to do. As citizens, we also have rights which we should press and insist on. But I do believe that with the kind of cloud of dust and doubt that over this thing, it's important for INEC to be more upfront in articulating its position, letting people know exactly what is happening, so that we will not by default find ourselves in the situation that we're trying to avoid.
The reason of the Interview Magazine TV, and of course it's going to be a regular now. This very first edition we've looked at the controversy around it. Non-signing of the 2018 Electoral Act Amendment Bill by the President, and of course the controversy that has ensued since that decision on December 5. Of course, so many issues trending in the polity. We'll be lashing on to the next one very shortly. That will be in the next edition of this series. Thank you so much. Ezenwa Nwagwu is the chairman, partners for electoral reform, and the convener Say No Campaign. We'll be seeing you around. And of course, the big stakeholder here, Ishiekwene, is the MD and editor-in-chief of the Interview Magazine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Gbenga Aruleba. Bye now.